Hello, I'm Julia Fisher and you're listening to The Olive Tree, bringing you news and stories direct from Israel and the Palestinian areas and the believers who live there, both Jewish believers and Arab or Palestinian Christians. This week we continue with the story of Claude Ezagouri, who today is the pastor of a Messianic congregation in Tiberias, on the shores of the Sea of Galilee in northern Israel. Last week he described his early life. Born in Algeria to Jewish parents, the family moved to southern France when Claude was just a few years old. Later, he and his French wife Michelle, who had converted to Judaism, decided to make aliyah and move to Israel. They joined a kibbutz where Claude worked on a banana plantation. This was a turbulent period in their lives, as Claude's search for the spiritual meaning to life took him in a surprising direction, as he now describes.
Around March of 1989, the Lord started to speak to me repeatedly during the night about leaving the kibbutz and making a big step of faith and coming to settle down in Tiberias. To me, it was really a big step because, when you leave the kibbutz, actually you start from scratch. And so we decided to do so, and we came to Tiberias. And as soon as we came, the Lord started to really bless us, as He had promised me when He spoke to me. And I didn't know the reason, but about 1.5 years after that, on the 13th of July 1990, I received a clear word from the Lord to start fellowship in Tiberias. I was very afraid to do so. I didn't have a clue how to do it. And I had a series of miraculous signs to confirm this. And after a trip that I took to England, I went to a PFI conference, prayer conference, and some elders there laid hands on me. And when I came back, everything started. We started to evangelize, and people were receiving the Lord. And within a few weeks, we had already a full house, in my home.
Can you just describe what sort of a city Tiberias is?
Yes, Tiberias is a rather religious city, a little bit like as we were in Algeria. It's even more, it's more into Jewish mysticism, the Kabbalah, all kinds of lucky charms and Jewish mystic beliefs. It's really mixed, but mainly they're very what they would call anti-missionary, and so it's not an easy city because this is not the place where you want to street evangelize, for instance. Could be dangerous. So what we did basically is we evangelized through contacts that we had. We went to houses, when we knew the people, and we were invited, and we spoke out of the Bible, and that's what we did. But there was in the past there were a few acts of persecution. Once people knew about us, so we need to know. We need to be careful, but we need to have discernment. And I think that by now everyone in Tiberias knows that there are Messianic Jews, but again, it has to be discreet.
So it's an entirely Jewish city, and if you're telling me that people were coming to faith quite quickly in those early days, what were they coming out of? Are these people who were religious people, or were they more secular?
Well, there are the ultra-Orthodox. There are several kinds, but most of them are religious, and even the secular here are not really. I mean, they believe in God. They observe the feast, and they don't like what they call missionaries. So that's why our main vision here is to to show that Jesus is the Messiah of the Jews. That he's not an imported Messiah. He's not. It's not going to another religion. It's not converting. That's a term that the Christians use, but it doesn't fit here in Israel. I mean, I could get into it, but when we speak to the Jews, we need to speak to them from an Old Testament point of view, from a Jewish point of view. Actually, 2,000 years ago, this is how evangelism was going on, and there were no Christians. The apostles would preach from the Old Testament and would show in the Old Testament that this was actually true Judaism. The revelation of the Messiah and why salvation had to be through faith, by grace, and so on. But all of this argumentation came from the Old Testament. So this is the way we like to approach it here, and not in terms of converting people to another faith or religion, and of course it's a process. It's a long process because on the other hand, the rabbis do their job also, and they say, well, they warn people against the missionaries, and these Messianic Jews, they say that they're Jews, but they are not. They got baptized, and so from the moment they get baptized, they're not Jewish anymore. They adopted another religion, and it's Christianity in disguise, and so on and so on. And of course, we don't believe so, and we're trying to prove our case,
Can you tell me one or two stories of people in your congregation, without giving any names, obviously?
Well, we had people who came already as believers from Russia or whatever, and when they came here, they had to adjust because, again, they have to know what it is to be a Messianic Jew, and this was our direction. For instance, we started the fellowship in both languages, in Russian and Hebrew, but then very quickly we switched to only Hebrew. Then there were those who found the Lord here, and for most of them, it was, again, as we showed them the word from the Old Testament, and they got their own experience with the Lord, seeing that the Lord was almost every time he was giving them their own experience with him, showing them that when they pray in the name of Jesus, things happened, and this is how they came to him. It's mainly through miracles, because you can preach, but you can talk about Jesus, you can explain the Bible, but they want to see if it works, in their lives, and actually it did, and we had several cases of several miracles, and we still have miracles. Even until just this last week, we continue to see a lot of things that the Lord is doing in our midst. So He's been faithful.
I know as well, Claude, that you're very, very keen on meeting with Arab believers as well, that it's important to you that Jewish believers and Arab Christians work together, especially here in the north where there's a large Arab population.
Yes, in our fellowship actually we have Arabs, and we have also meetings in the Galilee together with Arabs and Arab pastors. It's not easy. It's as long as we avoid the problem of the Middle East conflict, then it's okay. But if we, and this is what we want to start doing, for instance, pray for Israel, pray concerning the enemies of Israel, and so on, and it includes the Palestinians, from a spiritual point of view, and we start getting into this, then it's not easy with most of the Arab pastors. Most of the Arab pastors come from denominations, and most of these denominations come from the West. And in the West, we have replacement theology. So this is what they know, and they have a good heart, and they're full of love. However, some of them don't have a full revelation, perhaps, or knowledge of Israel in God's plan as a Jewish nation, and so on. And so we sometimes we really need to sit with them and to get into it. With some of them, we already did this. With others, it's more difficult. So we really need prayer for that, because I believe that this is where the Lord wants to direct us. We want to have a unity with our Arab brothers that is not just superficial, but we want to have it even deeper. Unity of vision, unity of doctrine, also, not only unity of relationship. And we need prayer, but I think that on both sides there is a desire to come closer, and we're getting there. Yeah.
Claude Ezagouri, a Messianic Jewish pastor in northern Israel, sharing his story. And we'll hear the final part of Claude's story on next week's programme. You're listening to The Olive Tree with me, Julia Fisher. And the Olive Tree Reconciliation Fund is a Christian charity based in the UK that supports the needs of both Jewish and Arab Christians living in the Holy Land, especially those involved in reconciliation. If you'd like to know more about our work and receive our free bi-monthly newsletter, please either visit our website, olivetreefund.org, or write to me, Julia Fisher, at the Olive Tree Reconciliation Fund, P.O. Box 850, Horsham, RH12 9GA in the UK. Join me at the same time next week for another story from the Olive Tree. Until then, goodbye.